you don't get the level of success that we have without leadership, volunteer leadership, and then a caring community. She couldn't walk across a hospital room. She said to her parents, I don't want to do this anymore. And now she's 33 years old. There's the family healing aspect of that, and families have told us over and over again that is such an underrated part of the Wish experience. Bring energy to whatever you're doing. And if you bring energy to what you're doing, your energy is infectious.
Yeah.
And if you bring energy to what you're doing, then it affects other people.
Richard Kelly, thank you so much for making it onto the show. This is the Not A Panda Podcast, where I'm interviewing different events professionals just to see what it's like to be on your side of making events happen. Now, as you are the Chief Operations Officer of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, you are definitely exposed to a lot of types of events that are a little bit different than, from my perspective as a DJ, I just show up to different weddings, birthday parties and that kind of stuff. But you guys sometimes will be involved with those sorts of things, but you're a bit more zoomed out, a lot more macro perspective. So I'm very excited to just hear more about your side of the profession, what it's like for you. So go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do, just so that people know who it is they're watching today.
Yeah, it's Richard Kelly. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Make-A-Wish Southern Florida. And in that role, I wear a lot of different hats. And one of them is to manage our regional offices, our offices along the west coast of Florida, in Sarasota, where we are now, in Tampa Bay, and in Southwest Florida. That's one of the jobs. I also have a job as hosting our chapters podcast, The World of Wishes. So we get to visit with a lot of Wish parents, adult Wish kids, medical professionals, volunteers, basically anybody that surrounds the Wish experience, and that's been a really neat project. Not just neat, but impactful project for us, because we're able to share what our mission is and for people to understand some of the nuances of the Wish experience, things that they may not understand. People see a child is granted a wish and they think, okay, that's a really great thing. And it is a nice thing. And people do think that what we do is nice, and it is. But what we believe is that it's more than that. It's necessary for the emotional, spiritual healing of Wish kids. And so studies have shown that is the case, that partnered with medicine, the kids can heal from the Wish experience. So that's a really a kind of neat offshoot of that. And I wear a bunch of different hats, as we all do in nonprofits. But that's the way that goes. But we're also heavily involved in events. We hold fundraising events all over Southern Florida. Our territory is basically the southern third of Florida. And then we're up into Tampa and Sarasota, the Tampa, Sarasota, Southwest Florida area.
Got it. So is that like the cutoff is kind of like the Orlando line and downward is?
Yeah, we're south of Orlando, kind of Vero Beach is kind of our line to our north, and then on the west coast we go all the way up through the top end of Tampa.
Interesting. I'm curious about how the regions are demarcated at that point.
Yeah, it's a little bit of kind of just it just kind of grows and contracts over the years. We started out as a smaller territory, and then when Make-A-Wish started out actually as an organization in the 80s, there were more than 80 chapters across the country, smaller ones, a lot of smaller ones. And the way the enterprise works is they don't want more chapters; they'd rather have less. So there's been some mergers of chapters, some mergers of territory. So that's kind of how it's a little bit of a strange map. There is a chapter that has 3 whole states: Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana.
Oh God!
And then there's 2 in Florida. So media markets kind of just drive that. Markets where children are treated drive that. So Florida's configured in a little bit of a non-traditional way, but that's what our territory is. And we're happy to serve kids all over our territory, and in the western end of Florida, the Gulf Coast areas, and also in Southeast Florida.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, before I start asking questions and digging into stuff, was there anything else that you wanted to mention as far as like where you're coming from, your story, any of that kind of stuff? Or,
I mean, I'd be happy to. I think that there is a part of my story that does have a Make-A-Wish connection to it, which does make it. I think it's interesting. And then then my career, I've been with Make-A-Wish since 1997, almost 30 years. It'll be 30 years next April. And I've had a lot of different jobs in that. I started as an event person, and so it's just kind of graduated as we've evolved as an organization. When I started in '97, we were eight employees. We're 48 now, and we granted around 300 wishes. Now we grant about 500, and we execute on 300 wish assists. Wish assists are when kids come to Florida for their wishes from other places of the country or the world. So we have a lot of advantages. We have 7 pro sports teams. We get national championships and Super Bowls and things that happen here. We have a lot of sand. We have a lot of sun. And we have a lot of water. And kids come to swim with dolphins or be mermaids or just go to the beach.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of attractive things about Florida that kids come here to do.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so something that I was curious about was when it comes to the logistics of you were mentioning how you have a podcast where you interview people who had their wishes fulfilled and stuff.
Yeah.
And as a charitable organization, you have a need to demonstrate to past and future donors what the money is for, like why this matters.
Right.
So I'm wondering, how do you balance between the need for maintaining the human privacy of the wishers and also the need to show people why they should support the organization? Because that has to be a hard line to walk at times.
It is. It's very delicate that we do. But one of the things that we do in the process of discovering, helping the child discover their wish, is there's a lot of legal paperwork that gets involved with that. And one of those is we ask their comfortability in telling somebody else basically about their wish. Either we pitch it to media or we tell the sponsor or we put it on our social media or something like that. We ask the family of sensitivity, are you okay with that or are you not okay with that? If they're not, then that's fine. We grant them their wish. We still grant the same wish experience that a family says, okay. But the family says, okay, then they've given us the opportunity to talk to sponsors, talk to donors, post on our social media, really communicate the need for why this is important, why it's important that these wishes get funded. And what's really interesting is our funding sources. If we're entirely privately funded, so we don't get government funding. We're not a United Way agency. We're entirely privately funded, and most of the funding doesn't come from the people that we serve. So we're unlike a hospital, unlike a university. They go back to their patients and donors and ask them to support their mission. We don't go to our wish families. If they do, they're great, but we don't actively solicit wish families. So they get a wish, they move on with their lives, and we come back to them for volunteer experiences or maybe podcasts or something. If they want to donate, then that's fine.
Right.
But that's not generally a funding source. Our funding sources come from people that just see the need.
Yeah.
So they're not a lot of wish parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts. There are just people that are generous people in the community that we communicate the need to, and they look at us and say, oh yeah, this is a need. This is something that I want to do. This is something that's important and something that's going to help sustain a child's life.
Right. Oh man. And I've definitely seen a lot of those. It's actually such a great inspiration to be reminded of the need for charity, of the need for taking care of people who are down on hard times or people who maybe have something that's unattainable that you can actually help them to bridge that gap. So I've loved it, just seeing the kind of stuff that the organization does. What's been one of the most impactful things that's happened since you started working with Make-A-Wish that really gave you that sense of like, that's why I'm here?
Yeah, I mean, there've been a lot of them, but I'll share a story in particular. There was a wish child. She was a teenager. Ranked tennis player, a really good teenage tennis player. And, she was looking to turn pro and do great things in tennis. And then she, started getting some stomach pains, and eventually that turned into cancer in her stomach.
Yeah.
And the cancer was particularly brutal. The treatment was particularly brutal. And so she's 16 years old. She's lost all her hair. She's undergoing chemotherapy. She's really weak from treatment. She told her parents she couldn't walk across. She tells the story, so I'm going to retell the story. But she couldn't walk across a hospital room. She just didn't have the strength to do it. The chemo was especially brutal. She said to her parents, I don't want to do this anymore. If the cancer doesn't kill me, the chemo is going to kill me. I don't want to do the treatment anymore. Just let me live out my days.
Yeah.
And they said, okay. They had to be convinced, but they said, okay.
Of course.
Yeah. The next day, the day later, it's volunteers from Make-A-Wish come in and say, you qualify for a wish. You can have anything. She said, I can have anything. And they said, yeah. And she said, well, if I asked you to go to Wimbledon, would you let me go to Wimbledon? And they said, of course, we'll send you to Wimbledon. It's, she can't play tennis anymore, but she can watch it.
Absolutely.
And can I meet you, Roger Federer, and, all of the stars of the time. And they said, of course we can do it, but you have to go back through treatment. And she said, okay, I'll do that. If Wimbledon is the goal, I'll go back through treatment.
Yeah.
She went back through treatment. A few years later, she got her wish.
Yeah.
A few years later, she went into remission, and now she's 33 years old. And speaking on behalf of Make-A-Wish and behalf of a lot of different organizations that have helped her. And one of the more remarkable parts of that story is that she tells us that she gives thanks. She has a very tight-knit family. They give thanks 3 times a year. Once on her anniversary of her going into remission, once on her wish anniversary, and once at Thanksgiving. And things she gives thanks for. 2 of those things involve her wish.
Right.
And she's 33 years old. She's a very accomplished person. She's been through a lot in her life.
That's for sure.
And these are the things that are very important to her, including her wish experience.
Yeah.
Those are the sort of things that crystallize together why we're doing this. We're doing this not just to, we saved her life, and she will credit us with saving her life. But there are lots of stories in different grades like that wish kids, wish parents, wish families tell us that the wish experience was what turned their lives around.
Right.
And now there are published studies that say that a wish is as important a part of a treatment protocol as anything else. And we actually, not too long ago, I was speaking with an oncologist, and she said they have, their goal is to make kids feel better, right? To heal children.
Yeah. And
they have their very strict protocols on how they're going to do that. So their protocols are mental health, pain management, the eradication of the disease, and Make-A-Wish. And so to be such an important part of healing a child, and we're healing the emotional and spiritual parts of them, that, you look at that and say, this is such a critical part in the healing of children. Why would I not want to do that?
Right.
So it serves as our motivation to continue to fight with these kids. And we're not medicine people. We're not gonna give them chemo. We're not gonna do that.
Write prescriptions.
No, that's for other people to do.
Yeah.
What we do is we play our part in the emotional, spiritual side.
Yeah.
And we take an immense amount of pride in the wish experience and how special that is, and how we get one shot at it. We get one shot at this child's wish. And so we overturn every stone. We move heaven and earth to make sure that is the most magical wish experience they can ever have. And then, we hope that medicine and the combination of the emotional, spiritual health will kind of combine and do great things for that child.
No, that's awesome. It's the word that's coming to mind is hope. Like you are helping a child to regain what is most likely a lost sense of hope for the future and what can be out of their life.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that is very largely linked to a lot of things that plenty of people struggle with when it comes to anxiety or depression and that kind of stuff, is like the ability to maintain and foster hope in oneself is a huge part of mental and then by extension physical health as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When it comes to the logistical side of the work that you do, how does that play out when it comes to making these events happen? What is it like to plan it? What are the sort of Floridian struggles that we have to deal with here? What's that journey like for you guys?
Each event has its logistical challenges and logistical opportunities. So the unique Florida challenges are weather, weather, and then the seasonality of what we do. Because nobody's going to an event in the summer. A lot of people are not here in the summer.
Right.
So our event season pretty much runs from October to May. And so we have a 7-month race pretty much to do all of our events. And we do events all over Florida. We have what we refer to as internal events and external events. External events are when somebody else puts on an event for us. They hand us the check, and then and we thank them.
Yeah, right.
And that's great because it doesn't take a ton of resources on our end to execute an external event. But the external events tend to, because there's not a lot of professionals running them, they're just really nice people that are getting together and raising money. they're not always the biggest money makers for us. What the biggest money makers for us are the internal events that we do. And we do 18 of them a year, which is a lot.
That is a lot.
It's a lot of events.
Counting it, that's more than one a month.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And in that compressed time window, of 7 months, we do 18 in those 7 months.
In a 7-month window.
Oh, geez, and the October to May, October to May time window. So it is a compressed time window, but you fish where there's fish, and so we just make it happen. And like I said, those events happen all over our territory, all over the state, all over our territory. They generally fall into one of 3 or 4 buckets. So we do 4 walks. We refer to as Walk for Wishes.
That makes sense.
So we do one in Sarasota and one in Tampa, one in the Naples-Fort Myers area, and one in Broward County in Florida, Southeast Florida. So we do 4 walks. I'm trying to dig deep on the number of golf tournaments we have. I think we have 3 or 4 golf tournaments that happen. One in Tampa, definitely, and then one in Southwest Florida and 2 in Southeast Florida. So the 4 golf tournaments. And then there are some eating events. We have an event that's really neat in Southeast Florida. It's called Wings for Wishes. It's like a chicken wing eating competition.
Love it.
And there's a major league eating component to it too. So Joey Chestnut won last year.
He won via Joey Chestnut.
We've actually done the event for 10 years, but done the major league component for 4. Last year was the first year he's won. He's come every time. But last year was the first year he's won. His hot dogs is his thing. Chicken wings isn't, but he ate a lot of chicken wings last year.
Fair.
But that's a neat event. We have another event our signature event in Sarasota called Cooking for Wishes. Really neat
like
event.
A cooking show kind of a thing.
Kind of, so it's different in that, each table, it's a traditional event where you have tables of 8 that are around in a ballroom, and we have a program. But those tables each have burners there where you basically cook at your table.
Okay.
So there's 4 courses. So and then there's 2 burners. So of the 8 people, everybody cooks a course, and then they serve it to everybody at the table, and they all eat it.
I love it.
And there's a chef at the head that so you're basically given all the raw food.
Yeah.
And the chef says, okay, well now put in the butter and put in the garlic and now put in the shrimp, and so it kind of tells you how to put it all together.
Yeah.
And then you serve it to everybody else. It's a really, really fun atmosphere, and it's unique and different. It's our signature event here in
It's like Japanese hibachi. It's like a reverse hibachi.
It's kind of like that. Where you're not watching somebody cook, you're doing the actual cooking, and that provides such a great energy to it. And the last 2 years, we raised more than $1 million each year, which is. Yeah, I mean, the chair of the event, a woman named Terry Klauber, the main chair of the event, she does such a fantastic job with that event, and in a generous and caring community. And right. you don't get the level of success that we have without this leadership, volunteer leadership, and then a caring community.
Right.
You just don't have that success, and we've seen that. Time and time again, those 2 things married together: leadership, volunteer leadership, and a generous, caring community. We have an eating event in Tampa Bay called Dishes and Wishes. That's different in that there are, I'm going to get the number wrong, like 15 or 16 restaurants that come and they serve basically one of their signature dishes, and you walk around and you can get plates from each one of these different restaurants. So you pay your 1 ticket price. It's not a sit-down event like your traditional ballroom kind of an event.
Right.
But that is an eating event that we do in Tampa. I mentioned the Wings for Wishes event. We also do an event in Southeast Florida called the Great American Bash. That's like a hamburger theme event. Same kind of concept. We have 15 restaurants that all bring their own hamburgers, and then you can walk around and you're rolling out of there because we eat hamburgers. Eat hamburgers before.
Put me in the wheelbarrow. I'm not making it.
Absolutely. And then there's other aspects of that event. There's bourbon tastings and beer tastings and things like that. But it's kind of like a block party. So we have those events, and then there are other, they're kind of one-offs. There's, in Tampa in Tampa Bay we have a signature event called the Wishmakers Ball Tampa. That we're 3 years running now. We're over $1 million. We hit the $1 million mark. For that event. Last year, Old Dominion performed. The year before, Darius Rucker performed. So we've had some big name entertainment at that event in Tampa. And then we have 2 other signature events, one in Southwest Florida, the Wishmakers Party. Casey and the Sunshine Band performed last year at yeah. So that was kind of a 70s theme around that.
Right.
And then we have our chapter signature event is our ball in Miami. It's at the Intercontinental Miami. We've had that for 30 years running now. And we've had some really top named entertainment for that, John Legend and Diana Ross and Steven Tyler. So we've had Marc Anthony's. We have had all different kinds of entertainment at that event. So, so as I said, each of these events have their own challenges to them. For the events that are, high ticket events, a lot of these events that have entertainment at them, they're high price ticket events.
Right.
Sponsorships, corporate, sponsorships. It's a challenge to sell those tickets sometimes in a different kind of a day and age. But it's our philosophy to produce a really, really great event.
Yeah.
And then, so we're thinking not just about this year's event, we're thinking about 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line. If people come, they have a good time, they understand what the cause is, understand what the mission is, know that their money is going to a good place and being used wisely, and they have a good time, and they tend to come back.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of the battle. But for us, it's setting the standard to produce a high quality event. And, it's easy to produce a mid-range quality event. That's easy.
Right. Anybody could do it.
You can roll out of bed in the morning and produce a mid-range quality event. It's much tougher to dot every I and cross every T and say, okay, we're going to do this the right way, this the right way, this the right way. Sometimes we need to spend a little money on that. And sometimes we just need to put our brains together and say, and work a little harder and say, okay, we're just going to make this the most fabulous experience for anybody who's walking through that front door.
Yeah.
And remember why they came here. So we involve Wish families at nearly every event that we have has some sort of a Wish component to it. And sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's a speech, sometimes it's just people participating at our walks. We invite a lot of our Wish families to come. They come and they walk and they participate that way.
Yeah.
But we think it's an essential part of every event that we do, that we promote our mission. We talk about our mission. We talk about why people are there. The ultimate why of what they're there is to raise the money to grant wishes, to send kids to Italy, or to send kids to Alani in Hawaii, or give them puppies, or whatever their heartfelt wish is. We just move heaven and earth to make that happen.
Yeah. It's wild to think about how many lives you're interacting with. And something that I was thinking about was, when you are in that space, the highs are easily apparent when it comes to seeing the wishes come to fruition, seeing the joy on everyone's faces. I imagine that there are times when the job is harder. What do you do to keep your spirits high when it comes to the parts of the job that are tougher? Because I would imagine it would affect the output of, like you said, the quality of the events that you're putting on if you cannot maintain kind of like a more hopeful disposition for yourself,
right,
even despite the sorts of times when things don't go according to plan or things take a turn for the worse. So what do you do for yourself to maintain good spirits so that you are always giving your best for the kids?
Yeah, a lot of people will answer that question differently just because of their perspective or their exposure to our mission.
Yeah.
And I know that I, in my job, have a lot of exposure to Wish families, to Wish kids, hosting our podcast. I get to talk to a lot of Wish alums and people that have had, kids, Wish kids, we refer to as Wish alums, kids that are 30, 35 years old now, and they remember specific things about their wish. And their wish day that happened 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I don't remember what I had for breakfast today, but you have people that remember specific things about these very monumental things that are happening in their lives.
Yeah.
And so if that is your North Star, that is the thing that you think about, that thing that motivates you, the thing that drives you, and the thing you ultimately understand, this is what we're doing. This is who we're doing it for. This is why we're doing it. Then those frustrations or those obstacles and those things that get in your way become really, really small, minor, temporary blips. Now, we're human beings, so we're going to get frustrated at things, and things are going to happen. They're not going to go our way, or we're going to have things that are pressure-packed moments. And people deal with that, and we're human beings, and we deal with it all in our different way. But I just can tell you from my perspective is I think about the Marinas of the world that I told you the story about, the girl that went to Wimbledon.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the Marinas of the world, or the Kayleys that I met today, who are, they're really battling. They're battling on their side, and we're battling on their side to give them something that they can remember forever.
Right.
And, but there are more kids like that out there. There are kids that get presented to us every day, multiple times every day, that are referred to us for their wishes, and we need to make sure those wishes happen. Right. And how they happen is we need to make sure we raise the money to do that. And how we raise the money to do that, well, it's a lot of different ways, but events are one of them. Yeah. So when you have this, this North Star, this thing that you constantly think about, this obsession with getting these wishes done, getting these wishes granted, and changing these children's lives, when you have that obsession, it just fuels you. It's the constant reminder of what you're doing.
Absolutely. One thing that I thought of was, how has being in your current position with the kind of zoomed out macro perspective of what the Florida chapter or the Southwest Florida chapter of Make-A-Wish is doing, how has your position changed your perspective of the Make-A-Wish mission? Because I imagine that what you thought you were getting involved in at first has evolved into something that's a lot more sophisticated now for how you connect with that mission.
Yeah. So my background, my previous job to Make-A-Wish, I worked for the Miami Dolphins, and we granted quite a few wishes back when I was working for the Dolphins. Dan Marino was the quarterback for the team. We had a lot of wish kids that wanted to meet him. He was very, very popular. So my job was to facilitate those wishes. So I met a lot of wish families coming from all different parts of the country, different parts of the world, kids that are older or younger, in different medical states, because sometimes they're in active treatment, sometimes they're in remission, sometimes they're just in different medical states. And so it gave me some perspective on the variety that we have of all different kinds of kids. But what I lacked, the perspective that I lacked, that I got when I started at Make-A-Wish, is all the nuance to what the untrained person would think is just, we grant the wish is over, that's it. They move on, we move on, and that's the end of it. And so I know differently, I know better, and that has evolved over time. What I learned early on in my Make-A-Wish career is there's much more than just the wish experience. That there is a family there, and once the wish is granted, they don't move on, and we don't move on. We're married together. We're a family.
We're in this together.
Yes, exactly, because there is a post-wish life for them. And, and it's not just their general life, there's a post-wish Make-A-Wish life for them. We bring kids back to speak at events, to be on our podcast, to do different things, and their parents, and so there's different opportunities for them to be involved in Make-A-Wish. So that was one early on in my Make-A-Wish career. I started to learn that it's not just a one and done kind of a thing, that they are forever part of the Make-A-Wish family. Yeah. And then what has started to evolve in the last maybe 10 years or so, in talking to all of these families, is you get a better perspective on the family healing aspect. And what I mean by that is, we hear over and over again that when a child is going through treatment, especially if there's multiple children, that the family is so fractured because you have one of them that's taking the sibling to soccer practice and the other one that's sitting in the hospital while the child's in treatment. And they don't eat meals together. They don't spend time together. The husband and wife, they're like ships passing in the night. There's one family that told us the only time they ever saw each other, or they saw each other in a 6-month period, was at McDonald's when they met for coffee. Because they would go, they both had jobs, and they have all the stress of dealing with the child's medical bills and all of that stuff. So they never eat meals together. They never laugh together. They don't certainly don't travel together.
All right.
And then when their wish comes about, and then we hand this itinerary, and it's basically everything is laid out for them, the hotels and transportation, all of the things that are arranged for them, and it's all paid for. When we hand that to them, it's such a relief on them to not have to go through all these logistics in their lives, and also they get all this alone time. They get alone time. They get all this alone time as a family, right? As a unit, as a together unit. And we've heard married couples say that it rejuvenated their marriage.
I bet.
They were motivated to do date nights and things like that moving forward. So
Yeah.
so
Because it kind of reminds them of like what they wanted in each other and what they once had. And stuff.
yeah, exactly, all of that. I mean, what they once had, what they can aspire to,
Yeah.
and what this period of time in their lives has sort of torn apart.
Right.
And so there's the family healing aspect of that, and you know, and the families have told us over and over again that is such an underrated part of the wish experience. And then, you know, what we also have heard recently is the siblings, and the siblings sort of get pushed to the side because all the focus is on the healing of this child, and that child's the center of focus, center of attention, a lot of times for bad reasons, but
Right.
for negative reasons, but it's still that child. And then
Attention is the economy that children crave. So it's like they don't care if it's positive or negative. They just need to have something.
and then there's that too. So we have, you know, but the siblings and all the family go on the wish. They're a part of the wish experience.
So good.
In fact, I was talking with the podcast that I hosted today. I was speaking with the young lady Kaylee, and she said she thought it was important. She felt it was important to bring her entire family onto the wish, and we agree.
Yeah.
Because the entire families, they suffer too.
Right.
They are going through all the logistics and all the emotional roller coaster that is a child being treated for some illness. And so for them to be part of the wish experience isn't just the right thing for us to do, but it's a family healing moment. So,
Right.
So those are the things that you asked the question of what have I learned over the course of time about how wishes heal, is that wishes heal, but there's also all these nuances, or all these fringe benefits that I refer to, all these fringe benefits of the wish experience that you wouldn't intellectually think, but when the information is presented to you, you say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense that we're healing the families, or you know that marriages are healed, or you know they just feel better about that experience, and how that part of it all goes into the emotional healing of a child.
It makes so much sense. I actually hadn't thought of that either myself, because you know you think about the person making the wish and what that's doing for them, but yeah, it has to be so hard for families. So I imagine that having that breath of fresh air. I mean, there's so many aspects to it. There's the fact that they're getting that support at all. You know, that a lot of people feel like they don't really have anywhere to turn for help and that kind of stuff. There's the emotional needs that are being met. There's the reminders about, you know, the what good times could look like for them and that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
When it comes to this line of work and putting on the different kinds of events that you put on and such, there are, I'm sure, times when things didn't go according to plan. What was something that was either the most unexpected or like the craziest sort of thing that's happened in your line of work? What's something where you were just like, I was not prepared for this. Where do we go now?
That's a good question. I can't think of one that was really, that unexpected. I mean, thankfully, we do so much planning for events that there isn't a lot of unexpected. I think
a blessing.
Yeah, I think in a very positive way. I think there have been times where we have just been blown away by the generosity of people. You know, because we go into an event with a thought process that, you know, we kind of have an idea of who the heaviest spenders are going to be in the room. We kind of have an idea. Right. We know from track record, and we know from what people tell us. You know, and so there's a little bit of history. There's some science behind it. You know, we kind of have a good idea. Right. But then we get blown away by somebody who just raises their hand. You know, and that's usually actually the funny part is it's usually somebody from the back of the room, because how we generally, the people who spend the most money sit closer to the stage.
They're like eager to be a part of it.
Yeah, and they spend more. They spend more, so they tend to spend more at the event. But then when we get somebody in the back of the room that raises their hand, that gives us an amount that we're not expecting. Yeah, and so that is a really huge, pleasant surprise for us, because we're so meticulous about identifying the people that we think are going to be the big spenders. When there is one that just pops up out of the blue, that's just a really, really neat offshoot. And then I think the other thing is, and these aren't huge surprises, but they're very pleasant surprises, is when something materializes in an audience somewhere, or at a golf tournament or at a walk, where somebody will say, you know, I had my wish 25 years ago. you know, and they came to this event, or they came to this activity, identified themselves because they said, now is the time for me to start giving back. And now is the time for me to identify myself as a wish kid and say, okay, now it's time. Let me know how I can help.
Right.
And so, you know, people live crazy lives, and they have different things that are going on and different focuses. Maybe they're in school or whatever. They have different things that are happening, and maybe this isn't the time for them to be giving back. But then they identify the time to give back. And then, so when I have a wish kid or wish alum, an adult, somebody who looks like you, somebody has a beard, and you know,
they've grown up. Their life is totally different now.
Yeah, and they look healthy, and they walk up and say, "I had my wish 20 years ago," and then because I ask a lot of questions, I immediately start asking them questions about their wish and about their wish experience and the impact and all of the things. And every story is different, and that's what gives us the juice, the motivation, the B12 shot to continue to do this, knowing that there's all these young people that are out there. So I think that there's these incredible opportunities that we do with events. Events are a lot of work. You know, there's no doubt that they're a lot of work. They're a lot of manpower. They're a lot of leg power, and they happen for us, you know, so often during that compressed time window. But then we see these joys that happen. Adult wish kids identifying themselves. People are making random donations, random big donations. Those are the things that we just turn around with. At the end of the event, you know, we sit around, we talk about, you know, all of the different things about that happened at the event. We talk about all these pleasant surprises, and just really gets us fuel for the next time. And then also, you know, we get a lot of positive reviews because we work so hard at it. And when we get positive reviews and say, they're already talking about next year and see you next year, when the event is basically, the band is still playing and they're saying, well, I want to come next year, you know, that also gives us a motivation to continue to work so hard to make this a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah. People don't even want the event to end in the first place. They just like, onward.
Yes, I know. People love after parties because they just want the afterglow of that. They don't want it to end.
Yep.
And, you know, so we've obliged, and we do after parties for a lot of our events.
That's awesome.
But you know, it really is a blessing. We have a kind of a phrase that we use. We don't look at it as that we have to do this. We look at it as we get to do this.
It's a privilege.
It's a privilege for us to be able to do what we do, and so many different aspects of it. You know, to raise the money, to raise the awareness, to grant wishes. There's so many different aspects to it, and then all the support that it takes from us as an organization, with our accounting team, our volunteer team, and, you know, all of the people that support what we're doing on, you know, for the fundraising and for awareness and for wishes.
Yeah. Goodness. So how far in advance do you plan out your events? Are you like 10 years down there? Like what's the average of where you start planning for things?
You know, it depends on the complexity of the event, but you're usually a year-to-year thing. You know, like the most complex events that we have are the 4 signature events. I mentioned Cooking for Wishes, the ball in Tampa, the Wishmakers Party in Southwest, and then our ball in Miami. They're our highest revenue events, and they're also the most complex. So those usually they're a year out. So the event will be put to bed, and we'll already start talking about what dates are going to be for next year. We already start the process of planning, theming, and all of that for the next year. Something like a little less complex, like let's say a golf tournament, that might be an 7, 8, 9 month process.
Gotcha.
A walk might be a 6-month process, 7-month process. Yeah. It's, you know, a lot depends on when we need to do our fundraising and when we need to secure event venues and things like that. So it depends. Again, usually the more complex the event, the longer lead time. But we have, so the logistics of the event are year to year, month to month, you know, 6-month, 7-month period. But we're thinking about the life cycle of an event. We're thinking about, you know, an event that's happening in 2026. We're thinking about these people coming to the 2031 version of this event.
Right.
And so
how can we inspire them to be a part of the ecosystem?
We want to lay the groundwork for this to be continue to be a successful event. So, you know, we take the mentality kind of like, see you in 5 years. You know, we're going to see you every year, but we're also going to see you 5 years from now. That's how we know we've built something successful, because that's how you sustain. And frankly, in a lot of nonprofits that we see, they take a year-to-year mentality. So they think about this year. So they want to pull in every dollar this year. And sometimes they lack the investment spend that they might need to make the event better. Or they might make sacrifices for future events to get that dollar this year.
Right.
We're fortunate and we don't have to look at it that way. We can make some investments in the current year to make sure that this event is still sustainable down the road.
Right. I was hearing there was a time when I was walking around in St. Armand Circle, and I just, to do something interesting, I went into one of the galleries, and I was, of course, there are salesmen in those galleries and things, and when she approached me about it, she was talking to me about, this price and that price or whatever. And I just told her pretty early on, I was like, hey, just so you know, there's no way on God's green earth that I'm going to be buying something from you. Right? And she was like, so here's the thing. I do not believe that you have a limit to what you can earn in your life. So whether or not you can buy something right now is completely irrelevant to me. What I want to do is make sure that I have earned your trust and interest in this subject, that if someday you should come to a place where you do want to purchase something, or you do believe in the particular artist that she was most interested in was some marine, I think Wyland something or other, but he's like interested in like marine art and whatnot. And so she said, if you come to believe in the causes that he supports, or you come to earn enough money that, you just want to start decorating your house, I'm more interested in having that relationship with the future you, that you would be able to come back someday. Right. So don't worry about whether or not you're able to do anything right now. I just want to make sure that you know that the door is open later. And I feel like it's kind of the same with you guys, that you have that perspective that you're it's not about trying to squeeze dollars out of people's pockets. It's about trying to have that relationship with your supporters, that they are enthusiastic about contributing. So that's smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. We want to raise money today,
of course.
But we tend to take a little bit of a different approach on this year versus next year and the years after, and that we want to build. We want to build because we know that's sustainable. Right. And we have at the top of our organization, our senior leadership team is very, very veteran. So we take a long-term approach to these things, and because we just know how they're built over the course of time. And so your analogy is perfect. We want to establish maybe trust. Yeah, trust is one of the things, but we won't just want to establish that people are just going to have a good time and know why they're there. Yeah, because you can go to, I'm sure you've been to nonprofit events. You can go to them and say, I have no idea. I have no idea why I was just there. I have no idea of the mission. I don't know what the nonprofit was.
It wasn't very well organized.
Yeah, I just
communicated.
Yeah, I just don't know. I'm confused. I mean, I might have had a good time and the food might have been good, but I'm just confused on why I was there. And we want to give people the why. And we want the food to be good, but we want to give people the why, and to understand it. And that's why it's important for us to have Wish Kids, Wish alums at events to communicate that why.
What have been times where venues or people who are helping you to fulfill a wish have bent the rules so that they could do it? For instance, just as a random idea, if someone wanted to ride a certain Disneyland ride, but they didn't meet the height requirements, are there times where different locations will they'll find a way to make an exception for someone?
There are, and I don't want to out any of them. Oh, because I don't really get in trouble, but we have had kids that have, people that have broken protocol, let's just say, right, to enhance a wish experience. Yeah. And for the most part, those are wish experiences, or auction items that are experiences. So you kind of just break protocol a little bit. We had a wish that we did not too long ago for a child that wanted to be a pilot, and so let's just say that there might have been some aviation, some airport rays that have gotten bent a little bit. Yeah, I won't say what those were. Right. But you want to provide an experience for this child, that not anybody else can get. So sometimes they just we'll look the other way, or say, hey, just come in here.
Remind them that humans don't have to, the rules exist for a reason, and sometimes we can still maintain humanity without them. Yeah,
right.
I get that.
They'll ask us to turn off our cameras and stuff like that, but we oblige him because the number one thing for us is the sanctity of the wish experience.
Of course.
And it can't be compromised. We go in and we take pictures and we shoot video of wishes. We'll never ask a vendor or somebody else, an executor, to do something over because we didn't get the shot or something like that. We're a fly on the wall. And so the wish happens and we're standing over here. If we get the shot, we go, yeah. If we don't get the shot, then oh well, that's on us. But the wish experience happens because that's the most important thing in that child's life. And then that turns out to be the most important thing in our lives.
Right. I would imagine.
Yeah.
So down in Miami, you guys have your intercontinental gala. So I saw online that's been part of, what is it, like 4.7 million and 3,800 kids, something like that. What's that been like? Like how the direction I'm trying to go in here is talk more about what that experience is like and why that's been as successful as it has been.
Yeah. So that event is a 30 plus year event. I think this is year 31 or 32.
Dang.
So yeah, it's been around for a long time. And in the first few years, it was a nice event and it raised some money. And then there's a gentleman who's the chair of the event, a gentleman named Sharif Malnick, who really open our eyes to investment spend. Mm-hmm. And that's not traditional for nonprofits. Nonprofits, they watch every penny, as they should, but then sometimes you just have to realize that you're going to invest in these events and that investment can pay off in multiples of your original investment. So he challenged us to invest in it, and it's different for a nonprofit. It expands your brain to what is, traditionally not that way and not that culture. So we started spending on the event, and the fundraising skyrocketed, and it has over the last 20 years since Sharif has been the chair. And we've taken that model to Tampa, to Sarasota, Southwest Florida, to other places, and say, well, if we're let's invest in some money in this, and in entertainment or in an expanded food or better decor, just something for the guest experience. Yeah. So let's invest in that. Let's not be afraid to invest.
Right.
And we've done that, and we've hit home runs nearly every time. Yeah. So, but it takes guts. It's a lot of risk to say, okay, we're going to spend more money and we hope we make more.
Right.
But we're, wherever it is, 25 for 25, where we've haven't not swung and missed at enhanced investment spend. So that's how we've done it, or in part how we've done it in Miami for our ball. We can't put it all on investment spend, but that is a contributor. Yeah. And when we started really skyrocketing on the fundraising there, but as I said before, it takes a generous and caring community. And if you don't have one of those, you can invest all you want in there, and it's not going to happen for you.
You got to have people who believe in the mission.
Absolutely. And then but then you can marry the two. You have a generous and caring community. You invest a little bit in the event, a little bit more in the event than you would traditionally, and then you put those two together, you get an explosion of revenue. And then we work hard on the staff side to make sure that every detail of the event is executed, so that these are the future givers and attendees of these events.
Right. I imagine there is probably some reciprocity for the guests where when they experience how much effort you've put into putting the event on for them, it probably does have something internal where they're just like, oh man, how could I not, if they're going to put in all this effort, then I should certainly do in kind to put effort into what I can give as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it does. And, we have not only the donors of these events, but we have a board of directors in Southeast Florida, advisory boards in each of our three regions that help open the doors for us for generous people and donors and supporters and sponsors. They help us a lot too, and so they're also ambassadors of our mission, and they are advocates for us to talk about these, the events and the details of them and why they're so fun, and they invite them to sit at their tables because they know they're going to raise money because ultimately we all want to grant wishes, and that's how we're going to do it.
Absolutely. If you don't mind saying it, what is the most that you guys have spent on an event? And I understand if you don't feel comfortable disclosing.
Let's just say that we have, I will say this, that we have a ratio in our minds of what we will spend on an event versus what we think that we're going to raise.
Got it.
And we have a ratio there. And that ratio, I think we will be comfortable talking to a donor about it.
Okay.
But another nonprofit might be in shock of what that spend is. But at the end of the day, if it gives us an opportunity to raise $1 more or $10 more, then we take it because as we have a kind of a philosophical expression that we use, like so last year locally in our territory we granted 504 wishes for kids locally. For the 505th kid, they didn't get a wish. And we want to make sure that we have enough resources to grant the 505th wish, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, or as many kids as are referred to us and that qualify.
Yeah.
And so for us, that's why we have this obsession with raising money. And if it takes a little bit of an investment to raise more than that, then we'll do that. And we'll fight outside the bounds of traditional thinking.
That makes so much sense, because I'm sure that for some people, they have this perspective of like, you should spend 100% of the donations on the kids exclusively. But that's a smarter way to look at it, of like, if you can increase the amount of outreach you're doing, then you are still using the money more effectively regardless. And that makes a lot of sense to me, where it's just, there's always going to be kids in need. I'm kind of blown away by the number though, 504 kids in 1 year. And that's just the Southwest Florida chapter, right?
Southern Florida, and Southeast, and then along our West Coast.
That's wild. So do you happen to, off the top of your head, you wouldn't happen to know what Make-A-Wish does annually, like in general, would you?
Yeah, it's in the 15,000, 16,000 range of wishes across the country.
Yeah.
I might be a little low on that. I think that was the last year number. But chapters are granting wishes all across the country, all across the world.
Yeah.
So there are 5 or 6 chapters that grant more wishes than we do. There are more than 504 in a year. But in addition to the 500 of our local kids, there's also more than 300. I think the number is 325, 330 last year of Wish Assist of kids that came here. And so, I mean, we do all the work on those wishes too.
Right.
All the local work on those wishes. We book hotels. We book, different activities.
Like the venue that they're going to, you have to let them know in advance.
We build relationships with vendors, and we create itineraries, and a lot of times we provide some staffing for that, and we go and cover them for social purposes and others. So there's more than 800, nearly 900 kids that that pass through our halls. Let's say, either they're coming here for their wish or we're sending them somewhere else.
How has your time with Make-A-Wish affected your view of charity as a concept?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's better or worse. It's just a different appreciation for it. And I'm blown away and inspired by people who support us or support philanthropy in general that have never been affected by it. And so for Make-A-Wish, it's a lot of our donors have never been affected by Wish. They didn't have a Wish kid in their family or anything. We just have done a good job of communicating the need for it. But I do a lot of public speaking or speaking training, and when I do talk to community groups and that sort of thing, of course I want them to support Make-A-Wish, but I just want them to be philanthropic, because I just think it makes for a better community when you're helping other people, and it makes you feel better. Most of our volunteers, most of the people that volunteer their time. We have quite a few that have been around for a long time, 2 decades, 25 years, granted a lot of wishes, and been to a lot of events and that sort of thing. Nearly every single person says they get more out of it than they give into it.
Right.
And these are people that give a lot into it. We see it. We know exactly what they're doing. And they give a lot into it, but they get more out of it. Mm-hmm. And so for us to encourage people, just be philanthropic and do anything. I mean, I'll say selfishly, as a Make-A-Wish guy, I want them to support us. Yeah. But just support anything. It makes you feel better. It's better for your community. And it makes for a more well-rounded community. If you have people that are supporting the environment or supporting children or supporting animals or, whatever it is, it just makes for a more well-rounded community. You just feel better about where you live when you have people that are just, that are philanthropic and do a lot of different things. And
it's got to make you feel more connected, because a lot of people in really just modern times globally feel so disconnected after, the internet and everything and how we drift apart. So I imagine that going to, charity drives or walks and that kind of stuff can really help people to feel more grounded and connected to the community around them as well.
And they meet people and they just have fun. They expand their horizons, and it makes them a well-rounded individual. If you think about for people that are working 70, 80 hours a week, and then they get to do this thing, the fact of the matter is most of our volunteers, most of the volunteer wish granters that we have are professionals, and they work jobs, and then they do this when they're at nights and the weekends, and that's also especially interesting to me because these people have fulfilled lives, they have busy lives. People that work full time have a busy life, they have kids and they have families, and they consider doing this. They consider doing their Make-A-Wish as a service, and a lot of them stick around for a long time. And it's so inspiring and such a debt of gratitude to those people that of giving their time. I mean, we're not in a position to employ hundreds of people, the hundreds of people that we need to go out and execute our mission. We're not in the business of that. So we need volunteers to do that. We need people that care about it, stick around and do it, and pour their heart and soul into it, and get trained on the proper ways of doing things. We need a lot of those people, and I'm just it's just a very inspiring thing to be around those people, and it's not just Make-A-Wish volunteers, but it's anybody that volunteers for any aspect of anything you run across in your life. And you'd be surprised, members of the general public, just how many people that they trip across every day that are just helping somebody else, right? And not for any personal gain, just either to make themselves feel better or make that person feel better. Yeah. And that's
that's the kind of world they want to live in.
And and if you're an optimistic person, you look at that and say, wow, this is an amazing community I live in. If you're a pessimistic person, you'll say, everything sucks. I like this, love this community. But if you're an optimistic person and you realize the power that those very generous people have.
Yeah. What is an event that you are looking forward to this year that you haven't done yet?
Well, there aren't any new events that we have. All of them that I can think of for 26 and 27 are repeat events. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say. It's like your favorite kid.
Right.
Each event really does have their own special place.
Right.
And for different reasons. Some are the biggest revenue events that we have, and then some of them are just the funnest events that we have, and then some of them just have this amazing story behind it. I'll share one with you. Yeah. We have a golf tournament in Southwest Florida. It's called Smile for Sam, and it's put on by a husband and wife, or a family, I should say, who lost their daughter. She had her wish, went to Paris and France, and but she lost her battle, and they're doing this golf tournament in her memory, and it's this couple, Robin, Helen DeMoro, and their family, and a very generous community. They're a generous community, and they all do it. They do it for Rob and Helen, but we know it's done for their community. Why do I love that event so much? It's just because everybody's just so nice, and they're so philanthropic, and they just have a great time. Golf is frustrating by nature,
right?
And they just come out and they just have a great time. It's a November event, a Monday November event. They're all in the same golf community. And, so that while that event isn't one of our signature events, it doesn't get a lot of the publicity that the Wishmakers Ball does, or Cooking for Wishes, or any of the other events.
And it's an outside event.
That's a golf
category.
tournament. Yeah. But that holds a special place because of who is involved in it and why they're involved with it, and in Sam's memory. And so, so that you asked favorites, that's a favorite, but that's for a different reason than some of the walks are. The walks are some of my favorite events because we have a lot of Wish families at them.
Right.
Because it is a more family friendly event. It's a low ticketed event. It's a outdoor event. People are walking, they're putting their matching T-shirts and all of the things that come with that sort of event. So those hold a special place, in your heart for what that is. So each event has its own different way of kind of just motivating you or inspiring you, and creating this, this community of giving and hopefully a sustained way of giving.
Right. If somebody is on difficult financial times, they're not in a place to be able to financially contribute to something. Aside from volunteering to help out an event, is there other ways that they other events that they would be able to get into part of, or is it mostly just word of mouth that they would support it? How would someone get involved aside from monetarily?
Yeah, I mean it's the volunteer aspect. The volunteer aspect is probably the biggest way, the biggest non-monetary way of getting involved. There is a word of mouth. There's the ambassadorship. They're sharing stories. Yeah. We're a storytelling organization, because we have a lot of stories to tell, not just the 504 kids that got their wishes granted last year, or the 500 and maybe 550 that are going to get their wishes granted this year. It's not just about those. It's about the stories. It's about people telling people, and people telling other people the stories of it, and the nuance, and the stories the right way, and the uplifting stories about our organization. That's why, I believe our podcast is such a great vehicle for that, because people can hear the stories directly from the people that are affected by them or do the affecting, and they can share it with somebody else, and it's an easy listen. And you can listen when you're on the treadmill or in your car, or whenever.
Yeah.
And
lots of ways.
So lots of ways. So I think that's sharing a story with somebody else, volunteering your time, and then there's other events that are really, really affordable events. Our walks are really affordable event, and there's not a heavy fundraising component the day of. So it's just it's a relatively small entry fee. You come out, have a good time, and feel like you're a sense of community, and then you're kind of paying that forward, but you're also growing this community of people that are aware of our mission.
I want to ask you what the biggest life lesson is, or biggest lesson working in your current position. Take your pick for which one sounds better to you. And then at the end, we'll give you an opportunity to let people know where to find either you or how to get involved, where to connect to, that kind of stuff. So life lesson first. So.
Okay. A lot of life lessons, but I think the two things that I've learned I should say a few things, is one is bring energy to whatever you're doing. And if you bring energy to what you're doing, your energy is infectious. Yeah. And if you bring energy to what you're doing, then it affects other people, and it usually makes them happier. The right kind of energy, I should say.
Right.
Not negative energy. We bring positive energy and a positive outlook. I'm a positive person. I believe in the power of positivity. You read a lot of scientific and non-scientific things about positive thinking and how it can help your, with all basically the chemicals in your body, the good ones and bad ones, of kind of just, a positive thinker has a lot more positive chemicals in their body, and they squeeze out a lot of more negative chemicals, where negative thinkers, it's the other way around, and it causes a lot of stress. And then, and you just generally feel better if you're a more positive person. Yeah. And then I take an attitude, and I hope other people do, to take an attitude of intentionality with things. So I personally am a very intentional person. I think a lot about things. I'm intentional with thanking people, showing gratitude. I think we are as an organization, we're intentional with gratitude. We're intentional with thanking people, recognizing them, because at the end of the day, people say, you don't need to recognize me. I'm okay. But at the end of the day, they want to be recognized. Everybody does.
Yep.
And they have different levels of how they want to be recognized, or how much or if they want it public or private. And that's on us to figure out how they want to be recognized. What their preference is, what their preferred method of communication is. But I think I've learned that over the course of time, if you're intentional in your professional, private, personal relationships, if you bring energy to it and you're a positive person, you can get a lot of things done.
Yeah.
I mean, that might overcome some of your deficiency. Like if you don't have the exact skill set for something, or if you don't have, the exact right, you're not in the right demographic for something, or you're not perfect for something. If you bring energy and positivity and intentionality to it, you can overcome a lot of that, or that can help bridge the gap. When I started my Make-A-Wish career, I don't have a lot. I could never host a podcast. When I started my Make-A-Wish career, but I just kept my eyes and ears open, and these opportunities present themselves, and then you kind of just fall into it, and then you bring your intentionality, you bring your energy to it, and then you can accomplish great things. And so I've learned that over the course of time, among a lot of other things. But they're pretty much the highlights and the things that I've learned in my the last 10 years of my almost 30-year Make-A-Wish career. And then you also asked me about how people get in touch with us. So our social media, we're the most followed Make-A-Wish social media chapter in the country. Mm-hmm. So we have a very active social media calendar, a lot of information about wishes and our events too, but a lot of information about our organization is through our social media channels. And we're at Make-A-Wish SFLA, and we're in everything: TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X.
Is there a consistent handle for that? Is that just
Make-A-Wish SFLA?
Got it.
And our website is wish.org/SFLA. So that's where you can get all the information about us. You can sign up to be a volunteer. You can make a donation. You can refer a child. One of the things I haven't talked a ton about is referring children, and that's a really important part, because that starts the wish process.
That makes sense.
Is for and generally
can't do anything for someone if you don't know about their story.
If you don't know their existence, And so we do a lot of outreach with medical professionals, asking them and talking about the importance of referring a child and the importance of a wish. We talked a lot about how important wishes are in the emotional, spiritual healing of children. We talked about doctors who say that, the wish is a part of the treatment protocol.
Right.
We need to educate medical professionals on that very thing.
Yep.
So they're in the business of healing children. So if they're in the business of healing children, Make-A-Wish is one of those things. Yeah. So why wouldn't you refer a child? It used to be basically you refer a child and then just say, okay, now you guys take over.
Right.
And then then we just do it from there. But so it's a really important part of what we're trying to do for children. It's the wish referral process. But but that's and that's the way to learn more about us and learn more about what we're doing. And our podcast is World of Wishes.
What's the next event coming up for you guys?
Well, this is July. The next event is in October in Tampa. Okay. It's our Dishes for Wishes event. The Dishes event is in October in Tampa. We also have 2 walks, one here in Sarasota, okay, and Nathan Benderson Park, and then we have a walk in Southwest Florida at the Miramar Outlets. Mm-hmm. Those are both in early October. Awesome. But you can find all that information on our website at wish.org/SFLA.
Solid. All right. Richard, thank you so much for making the time. Thanks for being on the show.